This is About That Business, hosted by Rom Wills, author, speaker, and entrepreneur. Sit back and enjoy.
Greetings, fam. Today I'm going to talk about the financial house, and this will be a part one. Now check it out, right? I'm giving y'all some information from this very powerful book that I have. It's called The Ebony Treasure Map, The Roadmap to Riches for African Americans, and it's by a gentleman named Myron Golden. And it's got some powerful stuff, but one of the more powerful things they have is he has is like a person's financial house. That's what y'all see as the thumbnail, and the picture is going to change as I explain the financial house of the poor, the middle class, the newly rich, and then the wealthy, truly wealthy, right? Now check it out. Let me read something from Ebony Treasure Map real quick. He said it's chapter 4, what kind of house do you live in? And just to be clear, there's a link to this powerful book in the description box. Anyway, he says, what kind of house do you live in? Everyone lives in a house. Even homeless people live in a house. I'm not talking about the kind of house you are thinking of. I'm talking about your financial house. Just as there are different neighborhoods with different kinds of physical houses in them, there are different kinds of financial neighborhoods with different kinds of financial houses in them. Now, he talks about how he's going to show you the 3 types of financial houses, the ones I just mentioned. Now, something else I'm going to read. Now, you see the picture up there. You see like this house, and, you see those 4. You see a door. You see the foundation of truth. You see asset protection at the top. That's the roof. Those are 4 windows in there, right? Now, let me read what he said. He said, each house must be built on a foundation. This foundation is called the foundation of truth. The roof of the house is called asset protection. The upper left-hand window is the income window. The bottom left-hand window is what I call the WRL window, which stands for wealth reducing liabilities. The bottom right-hand window is called the outgo window. The upper right-hand window is called the IPA window, or income producing asset window. Together, all of these components build a financial house. Now, all right, right now the financial house that you have up there is empty. So let's begin to fill in the house. Let's talk about the houses of the poor, the middle class, and the rich. Now, what you're seeing now is the financial house of the poor. Now, if you look at it, it's not like the first one. It got some stuff in it. You'll notice that, they have a job, and that goes into the income window. That's the money that anyone is going to make. You notice there's an arrow going directly from the income window to the outgo window. And in that outgo window, you have taxes, rent, utilities, food, clothes, children, and auto. Now, you notice there's not an arrow going to the IPA window, which is the income producing assets windows, and also the wealth reducing liabilities window. Basically, people are poor because of how they spend their money. See, one thing about wealth is not so much how much money you get, it's how you spend it. Like, somebody could be making 6 figures, but if they don't have income producing assets, or they just, for whatever reason, like they might get a big old house or something and spend all their money there, which I've seen plenty of people. They make a lot of money and spend it on big things. It's just, they make the money and it goes right back out. It comes in, it goes right back out. Now, the people who are poor, part of it is their mindset. They feel like, hey, we get some money, we got to spend it. This with poor folks, people who are poor, they don't have any savings, they don't own anything. It's just everything is spent just in an everyday survival thing. Now, one of the things to understand about that is that's why they poor. As you notice, they're not saving any money. Don't have anything going on. Now, that's not about income, because you can have somebody making a little bit of money, relatively little bit. They can be making $15,000 a year, but they could decide to put it in a wealth reducing liability window, which would hurt them, or they could put it in an income producing asset. They could find something that could actually bring them money. And I'll get into that in a second. But that's the house of the poor, and you see why they are poor. So let's put some more. Let's go to the financial house of the middle class. Now you see the house is faded to the financial house of the middle class. Now you notice it's a little bit different. You see the income window, the job brings in that money. The arrow doesn't go straight to the outgo window. No, it goes into the wealth reducing liabilities window. And as you see on the illustration here, those are cars, boats, credit cards, student loans. Basically a bunch. Now, as Mr. Golden explained in his book, one thing about the middle class, they'll buy a lot of stuff to look rich or to look like they got something, to have some status. That's why you see a lot of people, they middle class and they got all the perks. They got they'll have the nice house, which is a liability actually, because the house is just spending money. It's typically not making money for you. The only time you're going to make money with a house is if you're renting out that house and you're not paying a lot in a mortgage or something, or you're paying a low mortgage and you getting more money than you actually giving out. As an aside, one very strong key to making money, and this isn't in this book, but it's just a general thing for people to think about. You want to really be on a path to affluence, or at least financial independence, if you make more, if you have more money coming in than you send back out. Money accumulates. It's a very simple concept. A lot of people don't realize that. They need to have more money coming in than they honestly can spend. And once they get there, that's when they can put it into savings. They can put it into IRAs, money markets. That's when they can invest in other things, especially income producing asset window. But we'll get into that later. But you look here now, they could be making a good salary, but, that salary's being taken up by cars and, a boat, a bunch of stuff. Like, it's funny that a lot of middle class folks, or at least try to have the appearance of middle class, they'll buy a big old car, expensive car, right? Not realizing, with the exception of maybe a Bentley or some other really high-end cars depreciate as soon as the second you drive it off of a lot. So yeah, you might a lot of especially in the African American community, some people get some BMW and think they're doing something, but it say it's $50,000. You can drive it off the lot, driving around the block, and they'll be like, okay, we'll give you $25,000 for it. So that's a liability. And then what happens is, just paying for, those wealth reducing liabilities, especially if you're using credit, you got some debt. And then all of that is going out. Basically, your money's going out the window. Because ultimately, everybody's going out that outgo window no matter what. It's just depending on how much money you're going to retain. So that's the financial houses that most people out here live in. They live in that first house where all their money is just going to basics, or that second house where they spending a lot of money on stuff that's reducing their wealth. And as Mr. Golden said in his book, a lot of it is just because of status. And let me read on something he said. I really got to share this, right? He said, let me read this passage for you, just to give you an idea, right? Check it out. He said the middle class motto is, I've got good credit. So they buy a new house. They don't pay rent. They get a mortgage and they get a house. But you can't park your old cars in front of a new house, so they have to buy some new cars. Then the neighbor gets a boat, so they have to buy a boat. Then they have to get a truck to pull the boat, because you can't pull the boat with a car. Before you know it, you bought all this junk stuff. You can't afford to pay cash for it, so they finance it. and then they blow it out the outgo window in the form of debt. Middle class people focus on debt. Why? Middle class people focus on debt because they want to keep up with the Joneses. By wanting to keep up with the Joneses and have status, they end up spending more money than they make. They live their whole life in debt and then retire and become broke just like poor people. Remember the old saying, if your outgo exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall. Damn, I like that. And this is a part I underlined. He said, if you truly desire to be rich, forget about having status. My definition of status is spending money you don't have to buy something that you can't afford to impress somebody that you don't like, or worse, to impress people you don't even know. I want y'all to think about that. How many people are in debt just because to keep up with the Joneses? How many people are in debt just to keep up appearances? And then, when they come down to it, or there's an emergency, these same people who look like they got it going on, all they need is a job loss or something, all of a sudden, they got to downsize quickly. Like during that last financial crisis, the Great Recession, there were many people who had nice houses who ended up being foreclosed. They couldn't afford to keep it. Why? They spent all that money to fix up everything, look good, and remember, and they don't own that house anyway. If you're paying a mortgage, you don't own that house. The bank owns it. And if there's anything that interferes with you keeping up with all of that, boom. And the thing is, people say, well, maybe I can get a second mortgage. That's still debt. So, yeah. Let me, that's part one of the financial house. Check back with me tomorrow about part two. And that's when you really learn how to make some money. Anyway, let's go make that money.